child was caught up to God and his throne.
With the Son of God now physically beyond his reach, the devil directed all of his fury at the followers of Jesus, the new Christians. He did much of this through the cruel power of imperial Rome.
Now when the dragon saw that he had been cast to the earth, he persecuted the woman who gave birth to the male child.
Christianity was a struggling, small, persecuted minority that didn't have official status in the Roman Empire, and there were a series of persecutions, some of which were quite severe.
One of the roles of religion in the Roman Empire was to ensure the well-being of the state. The idea was if the gods were worshipped properly, then they would favor the empire, and if they were worshipped improperly, then they would, bad things would happen to the empire as a result of divine wrath.
They do not want to sacrifice to the gods, and the gods at that point include the emperor.
So it's easy to consider these people religious scapegoats. Basically, if something's going wrong, probably it's because there are Christians around who are refusing to give the gods their proper due.
Well, of course you have to punish them, and punishment meant, most of the time death.
What people thought was that Christians gathered together also seemed to make love with their brothers and sisters.
Because there were rumors about them that they commit incest. Well, see, because the Christians used to call themselves brother and sister, and they used to eat the flesh of Christ.
People heard, apparently, that Christians were eating children.
So when pagans heard about this, they thought the worst, right? They assumed the worst.
Christians are progressively stripped of their civil offices, their military offices. Their books are confiscated, their churches are destroyed, they're forbidden to meet, and so on, all because there's an anxiety that this is really undermining the welfare of the empire.
As the early church suffered under this withering persecution of Rome, their lives became a powerful testimony for truth. While the pagans lived in constant superstitious fear, these Christians faced torture and death with a supernatural peace.
Basically what Nero did was he fed them to the lions, he had them tied to pillars, he put pitch on them, and then he set them on fire as human torches so they could have the festivities continue on into the night.
Being stretched, pulled into two, being killed by gladiators.
Just about every creative way that you can dispose of Christians.
When facing the painful end of their lives, they often sang and rejoiced. As thousands of Christians paid the ultimate price for their faith, their dying prayers and blood essentially became seed for the new church.
People are so enthralled by how these Christians are dying that immediately, the reaction is, sign me up.
And so the Christians spread like wildfire. The more you killed them, the more they stood for their faith.
Now, it is true, and I think it has to be emphasized, that the early church spreads despite the very concerted attempts at repression of extremely autocratic and powerful emperors who set themselves very firmly against the Christians, and yet the early church survives.
Tertullian argues whenever something goes wrong, whenever there's a famine or whenever there's an illness, a pestilence that sweeps through, everybody says, "The Christians to the lion." And then he says snidely, as if so many could be fed to so few. And his point is that you can't destroy us all.